Hello everyone, I'm here, it's happening, I'm sitting down and I'm filming a video and I'm going to update you all on what has been happening over the last, term, 2 months, 3 months, who knows at this point. But if you're interested in hearing our term 5 homeschool update, then keep watching. So hey, if you're new, my name's Christine and I am a homeschooling mama of 3 and I share a bunch of homeschooling stuff here on this channel. That's what it's all about. And today I'm just going to give you guys a little update on where I've been because I took an I'm trying to think of the right word, an unplanned break on YouTube just for, I think it's like 3 weeks. It's like one of the longest breaks I've taken on YouTube for a while though, and certainly it was not planned out. And it's been hard to find time to sit down and film again. So I want to update you on everything that happened in term 5, homeschool-wise, life-wise, because it's all kind of like intertwined. And if you follow me on Instagram, you'll know a little bit of what's gone on. But I thought I would do like a proper dedicated video for anybody who's interested in knowing the full story. So first of all, my kids are all awake. So we'll see how well filming goes today. Usually I do it during like race time and stuff, but today is not conducive for that. And I just really wanted to get some videos filmed so that I can get some content out to you guys. Because the longer I kind of leave it, the harder it is to get back into it. So I'm jumping back on the horse and we're filming. So term 5, we do 6 terms in our school year. I do six-week terms with a 1-week break in between them. So term 5 was our second to last term. And honestly, it went really well for school. We did well. We kind of tend to drop things as the year progresses, especially as it gets into the warmer months here. I live in New Zealand, which is in the southern hemisphere, and so our seasons are flipped back to front to those of you in the northern hemisphere. So right now it is, as I'm filming, it's the very end of October, so we're in spring, and the weather has really warmed up and it's been really lovely. And so because of that, we kind of want to be outside and I want to be in my garden, and so like sitting down and doing a bunch of lessons inside is just not really something that any of us feel like doing. So I find that we tend to drop a lot of our enrichment studies towards the end of the year. Like any sort of extra, I don't want to call it fluff because there is like something good in it, but you know, the things that aren't like your English and math kind of thing. So definitely we kind of scaled back a little bit, but we did still keep up with history and science. And hymn study, we did a bit of poetry. I always have poetry as part of our day. Over breakfast, I read a poem or two, and read alouds. So we did all of those, and English and language arts and math went really well. And we added in a new curriculum, which I'm going to do a video on this very shortly, all about spelling for my son, who is 7, and we only just started that kind of at the end of that term, but we're actually already like really far through the book, so I'm going to talk about all that in the video. That's the only big change I think that we made last term as far as curriculum goes, and yeah, our days went pretty well. I will say it was a very disrupted schedule last term, and I didn't stick with our typical 4-day week because we just had so many disruptions that I kind of had to just fit school into wherever it would fit, and we just did it. We had a lot of sickness last term, both with my kids, and then like there's a whole big health situation that happened at the end, which I'm going to talk about. But yeah, I just kind of had to like put it where it would fit in our days. And oftentimes that was like at the end of the day, in the afternoon, or I think I took a week off because I needed to like deal with my house, and then that's when all the big health stuff happened. It was just like I struggled to formulate a timeline because it was so all over the place and so much happened. So we did well though, I feel like, considering with our school and keeping on top of things, and the kids still enjoyed their studies, and it's all going really well. I'm very happy with what we have. We're probably going to be using a lot of the same next year, and I will be filming some, curriculum pick videos usually, I think, post those like December, January kind of time. And I will be formally adding in my preschooler. So right now, my youngest is 4, and I haven't done any formal stuff with her. We've done some 5 in a row, which I'll admit we really didn't do a lot of that this term, like the second half of the term, because of everything being disrupted. But that's all I've done with her. And next year, I'm going to use the Good and the Beautiful preschool with her. And so I'm looking forward to doing that with her. But that's, again, another video. Okay, so what were the disruptions? Aside from me just having to get up and parent my children. Lots of life stuff happened. So we had a lot of sickness. Like my kids got sick with stuff, which has just been the theme of this year. I think for many, many people, like everywhere. Just like every bug that they could pick up, they've been picking up. The first bit of the term was fine, but the last half, they kind of all got sick with things. And then we have a bunch of birthdays in this time of year. And so we've had a lot of like birthday parties and like getting ready for things and events and stuff. And so it's just been a lot of back and forth. And that hasn't necessarily infringed on our like week, our school week. But because I have to prep for stuff, it just takes time. But then the major thing that happened, I think it was the beginning of September. And it was 2 things. And I'm going to put a little trigger warning here because I'm going to discuss cancer and, just the whole thing that we went through. And I don't want to I really don't like it when people put up YouTube videos that's kind of like sensationalizing things and like playing off of that. So this is not that. I'm purely just sharing what we went through in an attempt to help with those of you who are navigating particularly difficult and challenging life circumstances and trying to homeschool your kids at the same time, because it's not easy. And so that is where this is coming from. So at the beginning of September, my husband had a mole biopsied on his ear because it had changed color quite dramatically. It didn't look too nasty, but it had changed color. And so he went and had that biopsied, and we weren't really expecting anything of it. Even the doctor was like, no, it's fine. So he went away to a work conference, which is, we just have this thing now, literally every time he goes away on conference, something bad happens. And I just really, really dislike it when he goes away on work conferences, because it's just something always happens. So, he was away on a work conference, and he got a call to let him know that the biopsy result had come back as melanoma. And he really didn't know about skin cancers. And so he really was just like, they just said I had to get more taken out. And I had because of my nursing background, I know a lot about these things. And they didn't really give us any information at first. And so I definitely had a full freak out. He wasn't at home. He was in another part of the country for me and the kids. And I was just like, what is going on? Trying not to overthink things too much, but I definitely did. I think all of you can understand how that happens. We finally managed to get in touch with the nurse again and discuss it a bit more. I got them to send through the histology results, and I could read through that and worked through all of that and calmed myself down and realized that thankfully it was stage 1 and very treatable, and we had an action plan. But that was a whole process, and that was actually difficult to school through because my mind, it was a couple of days before we had real conclusive plans. And so I struggled through that time with homeschooling the kids, and my husband was away, and that's just hard, and it was a hard week. So then he got home, and he had been a bit unwell while he was away. He had a head cold, and he got home and he was improving. I think he got home on the Wednesday, and then it was a Friday where he texted me from work and said he really wasn't feeling well and fluish, he said. And so I said, well, come home if you've got, because he hadn't been feeling well. And so I was like, he's probably just worn out. I said, well, come home if you can, if your workload's not too big. And so he did, which I was surprised by because he's not someone who usually does that if he can at all avoid it. But he came home and he went straight to bed, and he stayed in bed until Sunday morning when I took him to the emergency department. He was so so unwell. He had high fevers, and the next morning, like the Friday he was feeling unwell, the next morning when I woke up, he said to me that he was covered in a rash from head to toe, which I wasn't overly terrified by that, because viral rashes are a thing. Like, it's not very uncommon for that to happen, especially with high fevers and all that. And I knew the kind of rash wasn't like something to be scared of, and so that was okay. But then Sunday came and he just wasn't improving. He was still so, like, I get really frustrated when people call like colds the flu, because I'm like, that is not the flu. Like, the flu is like you want to die. It's awful. This was probably almost worse than the flu. Like, it was so bad. He wasn't eating. Drinking was like an effort. Like, he would take like 2 bites and then that was him done. He was just exhausted from doing that. He was lightheaded, really, really unwell. So I took him to ED on Sunday because I just wasn't happy with the progression of things. And they weren't great. Like, we waited a while, not too long, but a while. And he actually saw the general practitioner there, not the ED department. They have like an after-hours doctor there over the weekend. And they sent him home and just basically said he had to wait it out. So that was fine. Like, I didn't actually feel too bad about that. He got home, went straight to bed, stayed there. Still wasn't eating and drinking much. And then I think it was either the Monday or the Tuesday, he started turning yellow. And that's when things changed. And I didn't realize how much worry I was carrying for him until like later on in the week, where you'll hear it gets worse. But he started getting jaundiced, and I was like, this is a bit weird. But he was feeling better, like slowly, very, very slowly, he was getting better. But he was looking far worse, and his rash was still there. Like, he looked terrible. And meanwhile, I'm still trying to homeschool the kids, run the household, do everything. It was really hard. And I was actually sleeping on the couch because he was so not sleeping well, and that would keep me up. And so I just slept on the couch. But I wasn't sleeping very well because I was worried. Like, it was so much mentally. And then on Thursday, eventually I was like, no, like, there's something wrong. And they didn't really want to see us in the doctor's rooms because they were overwhelmed. It was that time of year where everyone is sick. But I was just like, there's just something wrong. And his blood pressure had been really high in ED. And so we went to the nurse and I said, could you just run a blood panel, and can you please do a blood pressure reading? His blood pressure was still extremely high. And they did the bloods on him, and they said, look, if anything comes up, then we'll call you tomorrow. But otherwise, don't worry about it. So, we went home, that's fine, he had his bloods done. The next morning at 8 in the morning, the phone rang, and my heart just dropped because I was like, that's not good if they're calling that early in the morning. And the doctor said that he needed to get up to the emergency department basically right away, and they needed to do a CT scan because his liver function was like off the charts high and outside of the normal ranges. And basically I had thought a little bit about the melanoma and this whole situation that was going on with him being jaundiced, but I didn't put it together too much because it was stage 1 melanoma, and like it didn't fit quite perfectly, but I could totally understand where the doctors were coming from. Like, this guy's been diagnosed with melanoma and now he's jaundiced. Like, has it metastasized to the liver? And so we went up there, and that was probably one of the hardest days that I have been through, because it was just, and it was only the morning really, but it was all of a sudden, like, everything was happening. And by that stage, it had been like 2 weeks of very little sleep and just sickness, and my husband being away, and then these scary diagnosis, and then the unknown. And I hadn't really been thinking about the cancer until we got in there. And my husband really wasn't overly worried, to be honest. It was me knowing everything, and I could overhear the nurses at the nurses' station, and I knew what they were talking about, and I knew what it looked like from a medical standpoint. And so I'm usually someone who's really optimistic when it comes to health stuff. I'm like, it's probably nothing. That's like typically how I think. But because we'd had like these out of the blue, really weird things happen the last 2 weeks, I was like, I need to prepare myself for the fact that this could be metastases in his liver, and we could be in for like a really hard time. And so the medical staff was amazing, and they were really good. They treated it like really seriously, and they checked him very thoroughly, and then we just had to wait because they had a few like urgent cases in that needed the CT. But they got him in as soon as they could. And the doctor did come back and say, look, my gut is telling me it's just viral. And so, but we have to do this to be on the safe side. And so we waited, I want to say like 2 or 3 hours. And then they came back with the results, which, praise the Lord, were that it was all clear. And it was just a really weird viral thing, which it sounds like it was a virus where basically when you're worn out and run down, it can flare up, and it attacked his liver and made him very, very sick. So that all happened, and it was awful. And my mom had offered to have the kids, and I was like, no, it's fine. Like, I need to get out the house. I've been stuck at home for 2 weeks. And then after we got the news that everything was fine, I just basically collapsed. I was just so broken after trying to hold it all together for those last 2 weeks. And so my mom took the kids, and Shane and I just like slept the whole weekend. We were so tired. And thankfully, praise the Lord, my husband's like much better. It's been a bit of a recovery for him. It's taken a while, and there was really nothing he could take to make it better. He just had to rest. So he had another week off of work. So he was off of work for 2 weeks, and then kind of gradually went back. And they treated his blood pressure and all of that. And he's since had the melanoma excised and removed, and we've got like a whole plan for that moving forward. But that was just awful. The time was awful. The Lord was so good to surround us with support and help from family. But I think any of you can imagine how difficult, like nothing can take the mental strain away. And it wasn't until that night when everything had been declared, like it's all fine, that I finally slept. And I slept so hard that night, and I fell asleep straight away, whereas before it was taking me hours to fall asleep. And yeah, just all the things. So that happened. And I kind of we just had to fumble through, and I wanted to do school with the kids during that time because I could tell, especially with my eldest, he was really scared because his daddy was so sick, and it's not normal to see your parent in that way. And so I just really wanted to keep as much like normalcy in our day as I possibly could, to try and keep some routine and some consistency, because really the kids didn't see Shane for like almost 2 weeks because he left for conference, and then by the time he got back, he got sick almost straight away, and he was literally in our room, and we didn't know if it was contagious, and it was awful. And so I just wanted to keep the kids away from him, but that was really hard. And so to try and keep some like just very basic things in our day, I just stripped it right back to the core things we needed to do, and we did that. We kept up with our read alouds because my kids love those, which, by the way, we're on to our final book from the Chronicles of Narnia series, so that's really exciting. And we read The Boxcar Children, which my kids loved, and I really enjoyed too. I've never read that, and we loved that. So that was like everything in a nutshell. I wasn't expecting to get so emotional. I think that's like, I don't know, just like thinking back on it now, like when you're in it, you're just surviving from day to day and even from moment to moment. And I was so paranoid that I was going to get sick with what he had, and like who was going to look after us all. Because there was like, I mean, a family obviously would have helped, but like, it's just not that simple. And so, yeah, the Lord was very good to sustain us through that. And, you know, if it had been that terrible news, he would have still been good. It really makes you stop and just be grateful for the things that the Lord has provided. And you think through all the worst case scenarios and like what's going to happen. And the Lord has put us in a very privileged position, honestly, where, you know, if Shane's not well, then we're still taken care of. But, you know, that doesn't take away the heart of seeing someone you love go through something difficult. So anyway, I know that was probably a lot more than anybody bargained for when they clicked on this video, but I just wanted to share exactly what happened. And I haven't been back on Instagram and stuff much, honestly. I just feel like I'm playing catch up with life at the moment. And I've been outside a lot in my garden. I've just been enjoying that so much. It's been such good therapy through this all, just to like get outside in the sunshine with my hands in the dirt, and like just the physical work has been so good, and I've been so grateful to have that. And some of you will know that we've been looking to move house for like years, and over the last, I want to say like 3 months, the Lord's just given me such a peace and contentment about being where we are now, and I honestly have zero desire to move at the moment. Like no desire. I'm just very, very content with where we are, and thankful for what the Lord has done and how he's provided for us in so many different ways. So thank you for watching this long update, and feel free, if you've got questions or whatever, feel free to leave them in the comments below. I appreciate you guys and your support. I got some really sweet messages from you guys when I sort of said what was going on over on Instagram. But yeah, if you don't see me on there a lot, nothing's wrong. I'm just living life with my kids, and my brain is usually at capacity. So that's everything, I think. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.
What if the world had more of your smile? What if the wind could spread